Okay, everybody, it is so good to be back. I am so excited. It is Handmaid's Tale season. This is my spoiler review of The Handmaid's Tale season 5, episode 1, Morning. This was directed by Elisabeth Moss herself and written by showrunner Bruce Miller. I'm giving you guys a little bit of your bonnet time here, but this thing is huge and it's causing an echo, and the smaller bonnet I had got destroyed in my storage room. So I'm going to take this off for the rest of the review, but enjoy. So I'm going to break my review down into 3 parts. We'll start with everything that happens with June here. Then we're going to go into Nick. And then we'll finish off with all the Serena stuff going on. So with June, we're literally jumping right where we left off at the end of last season. And we're hearing the song All I Have to Do Is Dream by the Varley brothers, who I actually love low key. So we see this song is playing because June is having a dream here and reliving in this daydream her thoughts about savagely murdering Fred, something that makes her happy and she keeps thinking about it, gives her good feeling, justice being done. And she also looks down at a bloody cloth that is Nicole's, and this still makes her feel joy because she is, in her eyes, making a safer world for Nicole. What's interesting, the beginning half of this episode, everything happening with June, she still leaves the blood on her. She's still in this kind of trance state, a euphoric state, let's say, and that will change as the episode goes on. What's interesting is when she goes to this diner, she sees her troops here that help her kill Fred, and now they want their big monsters in their life taken care of. And you know what? June's pretty selfish here. She's like, that's a bad idea. You know, it's dangerous to go in Gilead and you're really going to leave your family. So it's very strange that she kind of turns her back completely on them now. And this one girl, Vicky, you know, she's pissed. She's like, shut up, June. She was here for you. You're not here for her. Talking about the woman who wants to get her mistress back. What was a little silly, though, was this character, Vicky, just shooting her gun in the air after pointing it at June. Did she have to shoot her gun in the air? That was a little ridiculous. So it seems like it's kind of their way to get rid of this group of women that were with June last season and sort of move on to different areas here. So the big thing we have to address, the elephant in the room, is June says, where is Emily? So before we get into how they handled this, Alexis Bledel has left the show of The Handmaid's Tale. I actually want to know if any of you guys watch this episode not knowing that news and kind of being heavily confused as why Emily just went up and left. I have a lot of thoughts about this. I don't go into rumors about why an actor has left a show. That's not anything confirmed come out of truth in the reasoning. You know, she kind of gave a very safe answer as she's just moving on. But who knows what the real reason is. But what sucks about it for everyone involved is that she is an OG character, a great character, Emily, and it's no matter what you do, no matter how you're going to write this, it's going to be awkward and weird because it's not what would have happened if she was in the show. She wouldn't have just written her character right now to be the moment she gets up and leaves after that big moment with Fred to go take care of Aunt Lydia. My take is that it's written this way and not something that's like an act of God or something that's quickly addressed and resolved. It's kind of left open-ended where, they could just some point this season show a body double that's dead, that something happens to Emily tragic as she goes to Gilead. They could keep doing things that are word of mouth, the stuff she's doing but we don't actually see. Or the reason they're doing this is the word of mouth stuff. With word of mouth, you leave the door open for a return. We've seen this in shows like Walking Dead that go on for a long time. Actors leave, and guess what? If when they decide to act again and they're not getting work, they'll come back. And I think the show knows that. So there's always a door open to bring a good character in Emily. Maybe it gives them a chance to re-explore that character later on. So maybe they don't just have her die or have something written off like that, but leave an open door there. So who knows, but I give a pass to the writers here because this is a really hard thing to just get out of. They didn't plan for an actor to just leave the show. So it's tough. It's tough for everyone involved. So we'll see how they handle it. And we see June goes to Emily's wife, Sylvia. This is where we found out she left to go to Gilead, fight Aunt Lydia. She called to say goodbye, but didn't want to say goodbye to Oliver, Sylvia says. And she's like, we're never going to see her again. I'm accepting it. I actually like the writing they have with Sylvia here to June to kind of bring June back to earth a little bit. She's like, it doesn't always have to be somebody's fault because June's blaming herself. She's like, why did I just appreciate the time I had with Emily? It's a good attitude. And she's like, I'm not just going to hate you, June. Look for someone to blame. It's just, You don't have to do that. So I kind of like that writing. It's just another perspective. And June says, if you hear from her, will you tell me? And Sylvia's like, no. So that was just kind of like a great moment, and it really angered June, because June's used to kind of being in charge here and getting a no. She doesn't like that word from other people she works with. So Sylvia's kind of just standing up for her belief on the whole matter. And again, it is her wife, so there's got to kind of be a wall there too. Like, it's kind of my call here what I'm going to do with my wife. But what's interesting, after this moment, this is when June snaps kind of back into place and notices there's blood on the window, and she's still got blood all over her. So finally she decides to wash up here. And when she goes randomly to go to the ocean, she reflects on Hannah. Now, one critique I have of this episode is kind of placements of where June goes, to the diner, then to the ocean. It's kind of all not in a great rhythm. It's just here and then there, and it's a really quick scene when she's at the ocean. So it doesn't have that like great Handmaid's Tale flow we're usually used to. It's kind of choppy. Not the worst thing in the world, but I did feel that. And then she's all of a sudden at the Toronto police station. But this is where she's a little more back to earth here. She's reflecting on thinking she's ruining Luke's life here, that she's a monster and she can't even be around Nicole. But Luke says some nice stuff here, like, but you are my life. And he gets it. And this is a moment also where they talk about Emily, and it's a moment they smartly use that as a reflection for June on Emily's choice. Like, I get it. I get why she went to Gilead, and that she's always feeling Gilead pulling. So that made sense, and that worked for Emily's character and also for June. And I like that June's saying she loved it. She loved what she did to Fred, and that, in a sense, also scares her. And I like that June didn't want to just sit around and wait to get caught. I like that she thought to just confess to it. Just own it. She can't keep living this lifestyle of on the run. She's not into that anymore, and it makes complete sense. But you realize that these events did not occur in Canada. So she's told that, and it's not a concern of Canada, so they're not going to charge her. And I like June says there can't just be no punishment. To me also, this was a little PTSD from her life in Gilead, where everything's a punishment whenever she acts out in defense. So you see that kind of kick in, so it's true to the character. I like that as well. But I like there's actually a little bit of humorous moment here. All she's charged for is transporting an unsecured biological sample, which is Fred's finger. She's got to pay $88. She's like, I don't have $88. But they're like, you can pay online. I like that, and that all that happened from this is $88 for the finger. That was great. Now, I don't think they necessarily need to have Moira and June also talk about Emily, because we already had it with Luke, we had it be talked about with Sylvia, and we had it be talked about with the other handmaids. So this kind of felt like, all right, we know there's an elephant in the room. We're going to keep addressing it. I don't think I need to hear Moira's reaction to it, because she's like, happens more than you think. People are breakable, etc., etc. So I just felt like that could have been like the deleted scene. Great, we'll get that on the Blu-ray. I don't think we need to hear so much about it. But the stuff that's interesting is Moira saying she doesn't feel comfortable with June taking care of Nicole, to the point of not even having her do a bath for Nicole. And she says it scares her, and June's like, it scares me too. And she's like, you scare me. And she says, I scare me too. But it actually leads to a nice moment between these two characters that is tragic in a sense of how things have just changed from them being best friends. And there's a little rift there, and things are always going to be different. But I love that she said, I love you. And Moira says, I love you too back. That hit hard. That was great. But on this moment of the bath here, what I thought was interesting and bothered me a bit was, we'll shortly see after she talks to Mark, which we're going to get to, Luke is the one who encourages her to come help with them taking care of Nicole's bath, which I really liked. And I actually wish they just left it at them all taking care of Nicole together with the bath, because it felt a little silly that when June is like, I got this, you guys, and she's handling Nicole, Moira just let it slide with no hesitation. She got up and left, which didn't really make sense, where literally moments before she was like, I don't want you taking care of Nicole by herself with this bath. So I thought that was crazy. Just give Moira a beat or something where she kind of gets it. It was just she got up and left. So that to me just didn't transfer well at all. So I think it might have just been nicer to have them all doing it together, and you kind of then explore them as a team taking care of Nicole and then easing into having June by herself. I thought that would have made a little more sense than just quickly flipping that from that setup that was in the scene before. It felt rushed. Now, it's incredibly interesting about this story in this show, because we're going to get to all the stuff with Serena, but with Mark coming to June, Mark is the most fascinating character one of the most fascinating characters, at least in the show, and he gets more interesting each season because you never really know what he's doing. He goes both sides a lot, and we're going to see this Mark scene with June is all the scenes after him with Serena, which we're going to get to, but I do want to talk about what he says to June, because June wants that moment. She wants to hear from Mark, what was Serena's reaction when she found out? And he's like, she's scared, and scared can be dangerous, he says, but she's like, she will always be dangerous, which is so true. But you see, Mark doesn't totally agree with that, because Mark has this tragic flaw of a character where he always holds on to hope that Serena can be normal, that Serena can be good. And he can't let go of that. And it drives us nuts as the audience. And it drives June nuts, but you can see, it's props to the actor that he has that beat in his face where he's like, I don't agree with that. But he mentions too that he thinks she's scared of Gilead too, which is setting up a lot, because Gilead is not just going to let a handmaid get away with killing a commander, so we'll set up stuff for the season. But I love, he says, well done, you did something terrible that needed to be done. And he says, I understand what that costs, may he rot in hell. This is such a great thing for June to hear, because she gets a lot of heat, and she needed someone to just congratulate her what she did in this way. And it's this total truth way, like, you did something that needed to be done and a lot of people can't do. It's like you're taking on that, whatever it does to your brain, it's not a normal thing to just be able to pull off, and it should be praised. And he says this great line, the quote that was on the wall under Fred, don't let the bastards grind you down. This is huge for June, and you see that in Elisabeth Moss's face, because it's showing how impactful that message already is, being on that wall, and the image with Fred hanging there from the picture, that it's already affecting someone like Mark, and that it can then affect many people. So it's really, really good she heard that. So before we get now into more of Mark and his story with Serena, I want to touch on Nick, because Nick got a little sprinkle in this episode. So we actually get to see Nick's home here, and what I like, and I love when the show does stuff like this, is when he actually drives up to his house in Gilead, which we don't see Gilead as much, and I actually miss seeing more of Gilead because it's where the show all started. There's a little nostalgia there in a dark, twisted way, not saying I like Gilead. I'm saying that that's where this show started in season 1, and that's when I love the show the most, so there's that kind of nostalgia. And you see that there's 2 handmaids passing by when he pulls up. So it kind of just reminds you where this all started, just with June and Emily being those 2 handmaids together walking. So I thought that was a nice touch. But we met Nick's wife. We only know a little bit about her. I mean, we don't even know her name, but it's interesting that she knows of June. So she knows of June and says what needed to be done is done, right? And he basically is like, yeah. So you're wondering what Nick told her, though. What did he tell his wife exactly is happening with June? Why did he even tell her? And it's interesting to see kind of that Nick dynamic now in his situation. So to me, it's clearly, seeing this in episode 1 should set up a more interesting storyline for Nick this season. And shout out Bruce Miller, who wrote this episode as showrunner. It was awesome. If you saw my live stream at the end of last season, he actually joined in, which was cool, and that was out of nowhere. And it shows me he listens to fans. He has an ear for it, which is great. So I think he's going to really listen to fans this season. We always want more Nick's story. So he always just gets drizzled in, but I think this season we'll get more. That's what I'm going to predict. Now, let's go to the Serena story here. So I love how they just open with Serena doing yoga here, and we get that creepy, eerie music that Handmaid's Tale is known for, and that's a shout out to Adam Taylor, does a great job, and it perfectly just sums up Serena. And it sums up Serena too, because it's not just creepy and eerie, the music for Handmaid's Tale, it's always a little graceful too, and that's how Serena presents herself. So we see Serena's being moved, and the big thing is she's told Fred is dead. What's interesting about Serena's reaction this whole episode is that it's what happens to a lot of people when they find out someone's dead, or a breakup even, is that we tend to just lean towards the fondest memories of them. So that's what's happening with Serena here. She's thinking about her happiest memories with Fred, with him dancing. Now, again, one little critique I'd have about this throughout the episode is that when she thinks another happy moment of Fred, when she sees his body later on, it's the same one of her dancing with him. I wish maybe they did different memories, or just not just all the dancing memories, something else. So that felt a little too repetitive. But in this moment of her realizing what's happened in the elevator, amazing acting per usual for Yvonne Strahovski. And what this shows you this season and this premiere is doing, this is going to be the big season for Serena versus June, and a big season just for Serena in general. And I've always said since the start of this show in my reviews that Serena is the most interesting character by far in the show to me, because she's so complicated. She goes all these different areas. She's a complicated, interesting, fascinating character. And I think that this season has such a high ceiling because it can really peak at a good level because the heart of this show is Serena versus June, their relationship. So if it's leaning into that this season for sure, which it's obviously setting up, I think this is going to be a really good season if they do it right, which I feel like they will. But we see she's put in another pretty nice facility she's moved to in the woods here. So what is so fascinating is when Mark shows up to Serena, he really is giving her all this information and updates, and you just sit there and you look at Mark and you realize, like, he doesn't have to do this. He's only helping her, whether he realizes it or not, which I think he does obviously realize, but it's because of this thing where he has good intentions towards June and her cause, understands that, but he is still enamored by Serena. He still has this false hope for Serena, and he does stupid things because of that. And he always gives her little things, little breadcrumbs that help her and keep her going, and we'll see that through this episode. And he's not talking to Serena the way he was talking to June about Fred and, like, thank you for doing that. He's kind of pleading to Serena, like, hey, it wasn't my fault. I just traded him off for prisoners, which was just, which Serena always ignores that stuff. She has a great way of tuning out the real truth of things and being in denial about her husband. But, he's like, I don't even really know what happened at the end here. And she's the one who connects the dots for him. That it was obviously June because of it being the ring finger, him telling her about the severed finger. And this is a message from June to Serena, like, I got Fred and you're next, basically. It's a scare. It's a threat that she wanted to know it was her. And it's so interesting because you see how Mark and Serena talk. It is like a bickering married couple in a sense, which is just fascinating to me. Because she's just shouting, you're responsible for Fred's death. It's just classic Serena things. And again, Mark giving her breadcrumbs. He's letting her see the body, which makes you believe he's going to let her do this burial in Gilead, which is just ridiculous. And he even says, I am sorry for your loss to her. And look, she already wants investigation into the matter, wants to charge June. This is so Serena at her worst. But he's the one who informs her it happened in no man's land, so she can't be charged here. But what's crazy is he mentions to Serena, wait till your charges resolve and start a new life with your baby in Toronto. And in my head, I'm like just waiting for him to think like, and yeah, me too. I can join you guys. Like, it's his fantasy. And he's even giving her options to apply for asylum, how she'll be safe as a refugee. And he's like, you won't be alone. So again, this is Mark's dream now, baby. Let's go. He can slide into Serena's DMs because Fred is gone. So June also did him a favor in a sense. So I'm very interested to see how they're going to lean into this with Mark. Will he be trapped by Serena's manipulation? Will he be fooled by her and her charm? Or will he be her undoing in the end and actually fool her and stay on June's side? I don't know. I think it's more interesting if he's trapped by Serena. But you see, Serena's supporters are outside. This is huge. This is giving her power again. It literally is her walking down and then mourning Fred, giving her hope. Her saying things like, praise be, may the Lord open. It's all Gilead happening right there. It's giving her that power she needs to then be even more confident to say to Mark, I am burying him in Gilead, what he deserves as a commander there, the nation he founded. And she even says, any civilized country will have the decency to allow it. She knows how to manipulate Mark. And he's like, I'll make some calls. It's just crazy and bizarre that later he'll go after this to June and even say the stuff he did. Because again, this man just knows June's right. But in his soul, he has got to have feelings for Serena. They're there. And he has hope that she could be a better person. And it's just, Mark, he just goes back and forth. So looking at this premiere as a whole, I don't think it's the best premiere in the season that have passed here with Handmaid's Tale. I think it's okay. I want to give this episode an 8.2. I think that's fair at the end of the day when I watched it. Because some of it feels choppy with the June stuff. Again, it's not even their fault what happened with Emily, so they have to get through this mud of not having an actor on the show anymore. So that was obviously going to affect it. I'm happy they're dealing with it, though, right away, so we can kind of get it out of the way, and I hope they don't keep mentioning her as much as they did, though, in this episode. They almost overdid it. But I really love the stuff here happening with Serena. I really like the stuff happening with Mark. I like they showed a little bit of Nick here. I think this was an okay premiere. It was good. It wasn't great. And it wasn't that eventful, a little flat. But I think with what they've set up here, I really think this season can be great. I hope it will be because it is focusing on Serena, the most interesting character in the show, and the most interesting relationship, because great relationships make great TV and great movies. It's the most important thing. And this relationship with Serena and June has been the backbone of the show, the heart of the show, I'd even say, since the beginning. So if we're going to get a climax here, the ultimate conflict between these two, to wrap this up, that I think would be great. We lost Fred here, so the Serena June is the main conflict, And I think the show has to come to an end soon with this, that this has to be kind of the main stage to finish this out and hopefully do some other side stories we can do. And like with the Testaments, go that route, because I don't know how much more we can do of the June story. So I think it'd be a nice wrap to kind of wrap it with the ultimate conflict with her versus Serena. Let me know what you thought of this episode. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I read every comment. I try to respond as many as I can. I'm so happy to be back with you guys, and it helps so much. You can become a member now on my channel. You can join today, and you can even leave a thanks on the thanks button, a tip that would help me in so many ways. If it's a one-time donation, it really means so much. And if you want to become a member, that will be something you can donate monthly. You'll get extra perks, like you get to see live streams I do that are only for members. It will help me in so many ways to do this full time one day. It's still a dream of mine, so I'd really appreciate any support I can get. And even if you just subscribe, that helps in so many ways you have no idea. And please follow me at Steve Varley Show on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok for more of me. I'll see you next time. Praise be.